My life with CPS, yes, it's been pure. You know, I've had so many judges, even a judge named Leonard Ponachek. He was on the case once, and then he left. You know, he sat there and he made us believe that everything was going to be over with. You know, they give you that false hope. They make you believe that they're going to leave you alone and that everything that you're doing is A-okay. And you know what? It's not even true. It's just a big lie. That what they do is they act like they're going to end the case. And then when you go back to court, they do a Houdini. You know the Houdini thing? They do a little disappearing act. And then here comes another lawyer. So I find that rather pathetic. And it's really sad when your lawyers bail on you. It's like you don't even know that they're leaving. All of a sudden, it's like they don't even have the balls to call you and say, hey, I'm leaving the case. It's like you go down to where they're at, their main office, and it's like all of a sudden there's somebody new, and it's like, hey, he's gone. And I'm like, what do you mean? Did he leave town? No, he's here in the same office. Oh, so he continues to work for the same company in the same office, but yet he dumped the case. Is that what you're saying? And the thing that really bugs me the most is that my lawyer constantly said, if you have new information, write me. Send me the information. I'd send him information showing that we took parenting classes, at least 3 of them within 2 months. I go and I talk to him in person. He's like, oh, did you send me the paperwork? And I'm like, yeah. And I said, well, do I have to make another copy for you? And he's like, well, yeah, I think I could use it. The funny part was when he decided to abandon the case, I said, well, I'd like to see the paperwork that I submitted on to you. There were envelopes that were never, ever opened. Can you believe that? He completely took my envelopes, the paperwork I sent him, left it in there, in the box, completely unopened. That's what I don't like about the lawyers. I think they're kind of seedy about everything, because I think that per case they're making money, they're making a profit, and I think that they just take so many caseloads on, they don't have time to read, and they don't have time to do the research, even though I submitted all the research myself, because I thought, hey, we have 3 parenting degrees, 2 from 1 to 6 and 1 from 6 to 18. Is that good enough? I thought, okay, maybe they'll leave us alone. Well, they're sitting up there and they're telling us, oh, you need to take more parenting classes. And it's like, wow, how much more do you need? You know, I don't think Angelica Jolie had to take any parenting classes. Whoa. I think when you look at all these movie stars, if they pulled them off the set where they're making movies and say, oh, by the way, I think you should make parenting classes, I think that they would have a real difficult time. But you know, I understand why they don't mess with the big time movie stars. Because for one, if they did, they would just get high-powered lawyers and therefore fight them in court, and therefore they can just go to hell and leave them alone. You know, that's why I wish I was rich, because then they would leave me alone. I mean, if I wasn't accepting any kind of financial help, which low-income housing is a blessing, and the reason people have to live in low-income housing in Seattle is because the rent is outrageous here in Seattle. I mean, when I was growing up, you know, you get a studio for $250 a month. You get a 1-bedroom for $375 a month. I mean, that used to be the going rate when I was growing up. But now they're charging people like $1,000 a month for a studio and like $1,300 for a 1-bedroom. And I'm like, my goodness, a long time ago, my uncle used to pay that much for mortgage. So it's really getting crazy. So when I was working on my jobs, And, you know, I was getting my little raises and I was working for little restaurants here and there. It's like I was living in regular apartments, but the problem is my rent, my light, my heat, my phone, my cable, and groceries and personal supplies. It was like I wasn't making ends meet. But somewhere down the line, I did apply for housing because somebody had bought our building and they just kept jacking my rent up. I mean, like $150 here, you know, $175 there. And it was like, wow, this is really sucking up my raises. So I applied for housing, which was a total blessing. And I do thank housing because they're a lifesaver. Without them, hey, people would be homeless. They wouldn't have a place to live. So I look at housing as a total blessing. And I do thank them. And there's some really wonderful people out there, especially Yester Terrace low-income housing. Judy Cotter, she's really a wonderful lady. She was one of the ladies who welcomed me into housing when it was time to come in because I was having a really difficult time making ends meet. And I was working at various jobs, but you know, for some reason, they don't really want to pay people that live in Seattle that much money. And it's like with all the taxes, the medical coverage and so forth, and you know, having the deductions from my check for this and that, it was really sucking me dry. But I moved into housing because I applied for it down the road and I was really grateful for it. And followed all the rules, looked at all the rules, and I follow all the rules to this very day. But I did attempt to move out of housing at one point because I was making adequate amount of money. But the problem is with the restaurants here, you can make them a lot of money, but they just don't want to pay you any. And I think that's why I kind of just gave up. I kind of threw in a towel because it's like, it's not only that, it's like some sexual harassment goes on. And it's like, hey, I'm not gonna, you know, kick it with you just to, you know, keep the money come flowing. You see what I'm saying? I'm here to work, not to work. If you get my drift, you see what I'm saying? But at the same time, I just said, hey, I can't do this. I want to work, but I don't want to sleep with my boss, quote unquote. I can name a couple of bosses that had the hots for me, and I said, nope. And they cut my hours back, and therefore I barely can make ends meet. So, you know, if it wasn't for housing, I would have not been able to survive. And it's like I did lose my parents, and I did lose my grandparents, and I don't really have much of a family here in Seattle. And because I'm not going to live in a house with people breaking the law, if you get my drift. So it's like housing is like a mommy and a daddy because it keeps a roof over my head. So I do look at that as a blessing. But I don't know, I really love my children a lot, and I really wanted to give them more of a life. And the only thing I can do is spend. Now, I'm on retirement, okay, but it's not full retirement. I spend my money on them, and then I take their money and put it in the bank. And I saved up their money pretty well. So that way when CPS came into my life and they said, hey, we want your kids, I'm like, okay, let me give them their savings account. Let me hand over their checking account. And I did. I handed over everything I could give to them. And I still tried to give a little bit more, but the people there said, that's enough. I think that's adequate enough. And I thought that was really beautiful. I signed over a portion of my check for retirement to the kids so they can get money. And everything's cool with that.